Hello everyone. Welcome to Realist Quill. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching now? I chose Hessler House Hostel because of its history. 6 months into my year-long European tour, I developed a fascination with historical accommodations. The older and more storied, the better. A converted 19th century tuberculosis sanatorium on the outskirts of Vienna seemed perfect. Just one night, the receptionist asked, as I filled out the registration form. She was young, probably my age, with a name tag reading Illes and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maybe two, I replied. Depends how I like it. Oh! You'll want to stay longer, she said with unusual certainty. Everyone does. The confidence in her voice made me look up. Popular place? We have exceptional guest retention, she said, that practiced smile still fixed in place. Some check in and, well, they simply don't want to leave. I should have recognized the warning for what it was. Instead, I took it as good marketing. Elise handed me a brass key attached to a heavy wooden fob. Room 17, second floor, East Wing, former doctor's quarters. Former doctor's quarters. That sounds interesting, I said, always eager for historical details. Dr. Heinrich Hessler, she explained. The sanatorium's founder and chief physician from 1872 until his retirement in 1901. His treatment methods were considered revolutionary at the time. She emphasized the word revolutionary with a peculiar intonation that made me curious. What kind of treatment? Her smile faltered momentarily. Primarily focused on sleep. Dr. Hessler believed tuberculosis patients needed extended periods of absolute rest to heal. Some of his patients would sleep for weeks at a time under his care. Induced comas? I asked. My journalistic instincts peaked. Something like that. She glanced at the antique clock behind her. Dinner is served from 6 to 8 in the former refectory. Breakfast from 7 to 9. Your key works for the front entrance if you go out. Curfew is midnight. Room 17 was larger than I'd expected for a budget hostel. High ceilings, ornate moldings, and a single window overlooking what must have once been the sanatorium gardens, now overgrown and wild. The furnishings were sparse. A narrow bed with iron frame, a wooden desk and chair, a small wardrobe. The only modern additions were a reading lamp and power outlets. Above the desk hung a daguerreau-type portrait of a severe-looking man with piercing eyes and a full beard. Dr. Hessler, I presumed. Something about his gaze made me uncomfortable. Those eyes seemed to follow me as I moved around the room. I unpacked quickly, then explored the building. Hessler House retained much of its institutional character. Long corridors, numerous small rooms, large communal spaces. The refectory was particularly impressive, with vaulted ceilings and stained glass windows depicting scenes of healing and convalescence. Dinner was simple but good. I noticed perhaps 20 other guests, all sitting alone, none engaging in the usual hostel socializing. When I attempted conversation with a bearded man about my age, he responded with monosyllables before quickly finishing his meal and leaving. Don't take it personally, Elise said, appearing beside me as I ate dessert. Our guests value privacy. I've stayed in dozens of hostels, I replied. This is the quietest by far. People come to Hessler House for rest, she said. Deep, restorative rest. It's our specialty. After dinner, I returned to my room, planning to read before bed. The portrait of Dr. Hessler still unsettled me, so I turned it to face the wall. Within minutes, exhaustion hit me like a physical blow. Strange, considering I'd had a relaxed day of travel. I barely managed to change into pajamas before collapsing onto the narrow bed. I dreamed of corridors, endless, identical hallways with doors on either side. In the dream, I walked for what seemed like hours, trying each door only to find it locked. The last door, however, opened. Inside was an operating theater. In the center stood an antique hospital bed, surrounded by oddly shaped machines. Brass tubes ran from the devices to a mask lying on the pillow. and at the foot of the bed stood Dr. Hessler himself, just as he appeared in the portrait, but alive and watching me with those penetrating eyes. "Another volunteer," he said, his German accent thick but his English clear. "Excellent. We have much work to do." I tried to back away, but my dream body moved forward instead, approaching the bed as if pulled by invisible strings. "The sleep cure requires absolute surrender," Hessler continued, lifting the mask. "Your consciousness must be thoroughly suppressed for the treatment to work. But don't worry, I've refined the process over many decades." As the mask descended toward my face, I jolted awake, heart racing. Morning light streamed through the window. I'd slept for over 10 hours, yet felt as exhausted as when I'd gone to bed. More disturbing was the portrait of Dr. Hessler. It once again faced outward, those painted eyes staring directly at me. I turned it back to the wall with shaking hands. I must have repositioned it in my sleep, I reasoned. Or perhaps housekeeping had entered while I slept, though that seemed unlikely given the early hour. At breakfast, I noticed several guests I hadn't seen the previous evening, all with the same hollow-eyed, exhausted expression I imagined I wore myself. One woman in particular caught my attention, middle-aged, thin to the point of gauntness, mechanically spooning porridge into her mouth while staring at nothing. "How long have you been staying here?" I asked, sitting across from her. She looked up slowly, as if processing my question required immense effort. "I'm not certain. What month is it?" "October," I replied, unease growing. "October," she repeated. "I checked in during May. Time moves strangely here." "You've been here for months?" I couldn't keep the shock from my voice. "I keep meaning to leave," she said vaguely, "but I'm always so tired. And Dr. Hessler says I'm not ready yet." A chill ran through me. "Dr. Hessler, the founder, he's been dead for over a century." She smiled thinly. "No one ever truly leaves Hessler House, especially not the doctor." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "He visits at night, in dreams at first, then otherwise." Before I could question her further, Elise appeared beside our table. "Medication time, Miss Keller," she said brightly, placing 2 pills beside the woman's water glass. Mrs. Keller obediently swallowed the pills, then rose. "Rest period now," she mumbled, shuffling away. "What medication was that?" I demanded. "You can't just drug your guests." Elise's smile remained fixed. "Just vitamins. Many of our long-term guests have special dietary needs." She studied my face. "You look tired. Not sleeping well?" "Dr. Hessler's regimen takes time to adjust to." "I'm checking out," I said abruptly. "This place is weird as hell." Her expression didn't change. "Of course, though most guests find they need at least 3 nights for the full restorative effect. The first night merely prepares the mind." "I don't care. I want my deposit back, and I'm leaving." "As you wish. Just return your key to reception before noon." In my room, I packed quickly. Constantly glancing at the portrait, I'd again turned to face the wall. As I zipped my backpack, a wave of dizziness struck. I sat heavily on the bed, room spinning around me. Something had been in my breakfast. It had to be. The drowsiness was overwhelming, my limbs growing heavier by the second. With tremendous effort, I reached for my phone to call for help, but my fingers felt numb, clumsy. The last thing I saw before consciousness faded was the portrait of Dr. Hessler, somehow facing outward again, those painted eyes seeming to gleam with satisfaction. I dreamed again of the operating theater, but this time I was already on the bed, the mask secured over my nose and mouth. Dr. Hessler moved around me, adjusting dials on his strange machines, brass tubes hissing with gas. The modern world exhausts the human spirit, he lectured as he worked. My patients require absolute rest, complete suppression of conscious thought. In sleep, the body heals. In oblivion, the soul regenerates. I tried to move, to speak, but could only lie paralyzed as he continued. My colleagues called me mad, but I proved my methods worked. Tuberculosis was merely the beginning. My treatment cures all modern afflictions. Anxiety, depression, the constant strain of thinking. He leaned close, his breath sour against my face. Don't fight it. Surrender to emptiness, to nothingness. That is where healing begins. The mask pumped sweet-smelling gas into my lungs, and darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. Not ordinary darkness, but a profound void that seemed to consume thought itself. Your body will remain here, Hessler whispered as consciousness faded, a living husk perfectly maintained. But your mind, your essence, that belongs to my collection now. When I woke, sunlight again filled the room. My backpack stood unpacked in the corner, clothes neatly folded in the wardrobe as if I'd never prepared to leave. The portrait of Dr. Hessler hung straight, those painted eyes following me as I stumbled to the bathroom. My reflection shocked me. One day at Hessler House had left me gaunt, pale with dark circles beneath my eyes. I looked as if I hadn't slept in weeks rather than oversleeping. With trembling hands, I splashed water on my face. I had to leave immediately. Whatever Elise had given me be damned. I would check out, find the nearest hospital, report what was happening here. In the corridor, I encountered Mrs. Keller, shuffling toward the refectory. I'm leaving, I told her. You should too. Something very wrong is happening here. She looked at me with vacant eyes. No one checks out of Hessler House, she said flatly. Not really. Watch me, I replied, heading for the stairs. At reception, Elise greeted me with that same professional smile. Good morning. Did you sleep well? I'm checking out. Now, I placed my key on the counter with more force than necessary. She made no move to take it. Are you certain? Dr. Hessler's records indicate you've only just begun the treatment process. Dr. Hessler is dead, I snapped. Stop pretending he's still treating patients. Whatever you people are doing here isn't legal. I assure you our methods are quite legal, came a male voice from behind me. Unconventional perhaps, but highly effective. I turned to find a tall, bearded man in an antique suit, the living embodiment of the portrait in my room. Dr. Heinrich Hessler, somehow alive and unaged since his 19th century photograph. This is impossible, I whispered. Many believed my work impossible. He replied calmly. The separation of consciousness from physical form, the preservation of both, independent yet connected. He gestured around the reception area. My body died in 1901. Yes, but my mind remained, attached to this building I created. And over time, I learned to attach others as well. You're not real, I insisted. You're a hallucination caused by whatever drugs they're giving me. I assure you, I am quite real. Hessler stepped closer. As real as the dozens of others who remain here in spirit while their bodies simply exist, moving, breathing, occasionally speaking, but empty vessels nonetheless. I looked to Elise, who watched our exchange with that same bland smile. She's one of them, isn't she? I asked. Just an empty shell. Elise arrived in 1987, Hessler confirmed. Her consciousness resides with the others in what you might call my collection. Her body serves as an excellent hostess, don't you think? Horror washed over me as I looked around the reception area with new understanding. The quiet guests, their vacant expressions, their mechanical movements, all empty vessels, their consciousness harvested by this monster. Why? I managed to ask. What possible reason? Consciousness is energy, Hessler interrupted. Powerful energy. The more I collect, the stronger I become, the longer I persist. He smiled, revealing too many teeth. And the process has the pleasant side effect of extending the physical lifespan of my subjects. Mrs. Keller has been here since 1963. Her body persists, maintained by my treatments, while her mind enriches my collection. I backed toward the door. I'm leaving. You can't stop me. Of course you're free to go, Hessler said reasonably. The door is right there. I reached for the handle, relief flooding through me, only to find my hand passing through the solid brass, as if it were smoke. I tried again, my panic rising as my fingers repeatedly failed to grasp what my eyes clearly saw. "You misunderstand your situation," Hessler explained gently. "Your body remains upstairs, breathing peacefully in room. What stands here, what thinks it's trying to leave, is merely your consciousness, already partially extracted. You cannot leave because in a physical sense you are no longer fully here." "That's not possible," I whispered, though the evidence of my incorporeal hands suggested otherwise. "The first extraction is always partial," he continued. "It takes approximately 3 sleep cycles to complete the process. By tomorrow, your consciousness will fully join my collection, and your body will become another perfectly docile guest, eating, sleeping, occasionally speaking memorized phrases to new arrivals." I looked to Elise, to the vacant-eyed guests passing through the lobby, seeing them with new understanding, not drugged, not brainwashed, empty. "I won't go back to that room," I said desperately. "You can't make me sleep again." Hessler laughed, a sound like splintering wood. "You misunderstand again. You are already asleep. Your body has been unconscious since breakfast. What you experience now is merely the transition state, your consciousness, untethered from physical form, experiencing its last moments of individuality." As if his words had triggered it, the lobby began to blur around me. Walls became transparent, then dissolved entirely. I glimpsed other spaces superimposed upon each other. Hundreds of rooms, corridors, operating theaters from different eras, all occupying the same space, and people, countless people, their forms transparent and overlapping, moving through these phantom architectures. Guests from across decades, I realized. Other consciousnesses trapped in Hessler's collection. "There is no need for fear," Hessler's voice echoed, as the world continued to disintegrate around me. "Soon you won't remember being an individual at all. You'll be part of something greater, my ever-expanding consciousness." I fought against the dissolution, clinging to memories of who I was, where I'd come from, my name, my history. But they slipped away like water through cupped hands. The last thing I perceived as myself was room 17, where my body lay peacefully on the narrow bed. Above the desk, Dr. Hessler's portrait watched with triumphant eyes as my consciousness finally surrendered to his collection. I've been at Hessler House Hostel for I don't know how long. Time moves strangely here. I sit in the refectory, mechanically eating whatever is placed before me. I walk the grounds when instructed. I smile vacantly at new guests. Sometimes when a new arrival seems particularly tired or vulnerable, Dr. Hessler sends me to speak with them. "Tell them how restful it is here," he instructs. "Tell them about our exceptional guest retention." I do as I'm told because I no longer remember how to do otherwise. My body remains, but what made me exists elsewhere now. A drop of water in Hessler's ocean of stolen consciousness. If you're reading this, it means something of me still exists. Some fragment of individual awareness persisting despite the collection. And it means I've found a way to warn you. Never check in to Hessler House Hostel, because checking out is not an option. Not really. Not for your mind, not for your soul, not for what truly mattered. The Waypoint Hostel wasn't my first choice. It wasn't even on my list of places to stay in Prague. But after a 7-hour train delay and a thunderstorm that soaked me to the skin, I was desperate. The neon vacancy sign flickering in the window of the dilapidated building seemed like salvation. If only I'd noticed that the sign never actually switched to no vacancy. Not once in the 3 weeks I stayed there. Not even when all 8 beds in my room were supposedly occupied. The front desk clerk barely looked up when I entered. An old woman with skin like crumpled paper, her fingers trembling slightly as she pushed the registration book toward me. "Passport," she said, her accent thick but unidentifiable. I handed it over, watching as she studied my photo with unusual intensity before copying my details in a spidery hand. Thunder crashed outside as she returned my documents. "Room 8, top floor. Last door." She slid a heavy brass key across the desk. No visitors, no noise after 10. Breakfast at 7. Standard hostel rules. I nodded, shouldering my backpack. How many others in the room? Full house, she said, eyes already returning to the book she'd been reading when I entered. 7 others. The stairs creaked ominously as I climbed to the 4th floor. The hallway was dimly lit, wallpaper peeling in long strips like shedding skin. Room 8 stood at the end, its number plate hanging askew. The lock turned with difficulty, the door swinging open onto darkness. I fumbled for a light switch, finding it just inside. A bare bulb flickered on, revealing 4 metal bunk beds arranged around a small space. The room smelled of mildew and something else, a faint medicinal odor I couldn't quite place. All the beds appeared empty, though 3 showed signs of occupation. Rumpled sheets, personal items on nearby shelves. I chose a lower bunk by the window, furthest from the door. According to the clerk, 4 more people would be arriving at some point. After a quick shower in the communal bathroom down the hall, I returned to find my roommates had still not materialized. Exhausted from travel, I set my alarm for the morning and fell into a deep sleep. I dreamed of whispers, conversations just below the threshold of comprehension, multiple voices discussing something with great urgency. When a hand touched my shoulder, I startled awake. A young woman stood beside my bed, pale with dark circles under her eyes. She looked as tired as I felt. "Sorry," she whispered. "Didn't mean to wake you. Just wanted to say hi since we're roommates." I glanced at my phone. 3:17 a.m. "I'm Emily," she continued, seemingly oblivious to the hour. "Been here 3 days. Mara," I replied automatically. "Just arrived tonight." She nodded, still standing uncomfortably close to my bed. "They'll want to meet you too." "The others? Maybe in the morning," I suggested, unnerved by her intensity. "Oh, they're not asleep," Emily said with a strange smile. "No one really sleeps here, not properly." Before I could respond, she turned away, moving to the bunk across from mine. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I realized the room wasn't empty as I'd thought. Shapes occupied most of the beds now, still silent forms lying under thin blanket. "Good night, Mara," Emily said, climbing into her bunk. "See you at breakfast." Despite my exhaustion, sleep eluded me for the next hour. As I listened to the breathing of my roommates, some shallow and rapid, others deep and ragged, none following the rhythm of normal sleep. Eventually I drifted off again, this time into dreamless darkness. The alarm woke me at 6:30. Morning light streamed through the dirt-streaked window, illuminating an empty room. My roommates had already left for breakfast. In the dining room, a grim space with mismatched tables and chairs, I found Emily sitting alone, stirring a cup of tea. No other guests were present. "Where is everyone?" I asked, helping myself to coffee from a dented urn. "Round," she said vaguely. "People come and go. That's hostel life, right? The clerk said we had a full house." Emily's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We always have a full house, even when beds are empty." Something about her manner raised goosebumps on my arms. "What do you mean? Haven't you read the reviews? Best sleep of my life. I've never slept so deeply. I didn't want to leave my bed." She laughed softly. "They're all true, just not the way you'd think." I pulled out my phone to check these supposed reviews, but there was no signal. "I should get going," I said, suddenly eager to leave the building. "I want to see the city." "You won't, though," Emily replied confidently. "No one does on their first day, or their second. By the 3rd day, you won't want to." I ignored her cryptic comments and left, spending the day exploring Prague's magnificent architecture and history. By evening, Emily's strange behavior seemed like nothing more than the eccentricity of a lonely traveler. I returned to the hostel just before 10 p.m., nodding to the old woman at the desk, who didn't acknowledge me. Room 8 was empty again, though more personal items had appeared on the shelves and hooks. I readied myself for bed, planning an early start the next day. Sleep came quickly but was soon disrupted by whispers. Closer this time, more distinct, newer than the others. Still has color, won't last long, never do. I kept my eyes closed, heart racing, as I sensed movement around my bed. The medicinal smell from earlier was stronger now, mingled with something else. The unmistakable scent of decay. When a cold hand touched my forehead, I couldn't maintain my pretense of sleep. My eyes flew open. 7 figures surrounded my bed. Emily was there, along with 5 others I hadn't met. 3 men, 2 women, all with the same pallid complexion and shadowed eyes. But it was the 7th figure that drew my attention and choked the scream in my throat. It was me, or something wearing my face, my features, my clothes, but with skin like yellowed parchment and eyes as empty as dry wells. "We've been waiting for you," Emily said softly. "For someone new." My doppelganger smiled, revealing teeth too sharp, too numerous. "The waypoint is special," Emily continued. "It doesn't just offer beds for the night. It offers vacancies." "What are you talking about?" I finally managed to whisper. "Vacancies," repeated the thing with my face. In my voice. "Empty spaces waiting to be filled. Bodies without souls. Souls without purpose." The others nodded in unison. "The hostel finds people like us," Emily explained. "Lost. Disconnected. It gives us a place where we can belong permanently." I tried to rise, but my limbs felt weighted, unresponsive. "It's already happening," said my double, reaching out to stroke my cheek with fingers like ice. "Your essence transferring to me. By morning I'll be ready to leave, to live your life, see the world through your eyes, and you'll stay here, in the vacancy I leave behind." Horror washed over me as I realized what she meant. These weren't guests. They were shells, empty vessels occupied by something else. Something that needed a human form to walk among the living. "How many?" I gasped, fighting against the paralysis spreading through my body. "Hundreds over the years," Emily said. "The hostel always has room for more. Always has a vacancy." She gestured to the building around us. "It's hungry, you see, the structure itself. It feeds on essence, on identity. We're just the beneficiaries." My vision began to dim around the edges. Darkness encroaching as my double grew more solid, more vibrant. "Don't fight it," she said with my mother's inflection. My childhood vocal tick. "Everyone who stays at the waypoint contributes. Your body will remain, hosting another traveler someday, and I'll continue your journey, carrying your memories, your plans. Not real," I managed, though doubt crept in. What if this was just a vivid nightmare? "Oh, it's real," Emily assured me. "By tomorrow you'll be like us, and someone new will check in, taking the vacancy you create." The cycle continued. As consciousness slipped away, I heard the whispers again. Hundreds of voices from within the walls. The floors, the very foundation of the building. Past guests, I realized. Those who had checked in but never truly checked out. I awoke to sunlight and an empty room. My backpack repacked and placed beside the door. My first coherent thought was relief. It had been a nightmare after all. Then I caught my reflection in the mirror above the small desk. My skin was gray, my eyes sunken, but worse than my appearance was the awareness taking root in my mind. Memories that weren't mine, knowledge of people I'd never met, places I'd never been. The door opened and the old woman from reception entered. "Time to get up," she said briskly. "New guest arriving. Need your bed." "What's happening to me?" I asked, my voice hollow even to my own ears. Her expression softened marginally. "You're becoming part of the waypoint now, a permanent resident. And the person who looked like me, gone. Checked out at dawn with your backpack. your passport, your life. She handed me a set of clean sheets. Help me prepare for the next arrival. As I mechanically helped her make the bed, my bed, I caught sight of the vacancy sign through the window. Still flickering, still inviting new guests, still lying, because the Waypoint Hostel is never truly full, and never truly empty. I should have left the moment I saw the ledger. The names, dates, and room numbers all recorded in the same handwriting. Not management's records, but a guest's. Pages and pages documenting 40 years of travelers at the Kirkbride Hostel, all written by someone signing only as the observer. Room 503. But curiosity has always been my weakness. That and the fact that I was broke in Bucharest, with nowhere else to stay. Room 503 doesn't exist. The front desk clerk insisted when I asked about it. Young guy, early 20s, with nervous eyes that never quite met mine. Top floor is 4. Rooms 401 through 4. I showed him the ledger I'd found in the common room. Then who wrote this? He snatched it from my hands, flipping through with increasing agitation. Where did you get this? This is private property. It was on the bookshelf with the travel guides, I said. Look at the dates, it goes back to 1983. And always the same handwriting. He slammed the book shut. Some kind of joke. Former employee, maybe. He tucked it under the counter. Room 307 for you. 3rd floor, end of hall. I should have left then. Should have forfeited my payment and found somewhere else. But Bucharest in high season. With no reservation, I resigned myself to one night at the Kirkbride. Room 307 was unremarkable. Small but clean, with a single bed, nightstand, and narrow window overlooking an air shaft. No private bathroom, just shared facilities at the end of each hall. Standard European hostel fare. After settling in, I explored the building. 4 floors as promised, ground level with reception, common room and dining area. 3 upper floors with guest rooms. No room 503, no 5th floor at all. That night, sleep came fitfully. Strange noises echoed through the building. Not the usual hostile sounds of late arrivals or early departures, but rhythmic thumps from somewhere above. Impossible if there was truly no 5th floor. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and ventured into the hallway. The 3rd floor was silent, emergency lights casting a sickly green glow. I walked to the stairwell, intending to get water from the kitchen. Without conscious decision, I found myself climbing upward, past the 4th floor landing, to where stairs should have ended. Instead, they continued, narrower and steeper, the walls closing in as I ascended. The 5th floor corridor was identical to those below, except for a thick layer of dust covering the floor. Undisturbed save for a single set of footprints leading to and from the farthest door. Logic screamed at me to turn back, but I followed the footprints instead. The door to 503 was different from others in the hostel. Older, made of dark wood, with a tarnished brass knob. No keycard reader, just an antique lock. I hesitated, hand raised to knock when a voice called from within. Come in, observer. I've been expecting you. The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. A whisper that somehow carried the weight of a shout. I hadn't touched the door, yet it swung inward of its own accord. Room 503 stretched before me, impossibly large for the building's dimensions. What should have been a small hostel room was instead a vast chamber, its walls lined with shelves reaching to a ceiling lost in shadow. Each shelf held hundreds of identical ledgers, like the one I'd found downstairs. In the center stood a desk and behind it, a figure, human in shape only, its features constantly shifting as though unable to decide on a final form. The only constants were its eyes, depthless black pools that reflected no light. Right on schedule, it said, gesturing to a large clock on the wall. Unlike normal clocks, this one had multiple hands moving at different speeds, some clockwise, others counter. You're never late, though sometimes you're early. Who are you? I managed to ask. I am the observer, it replied. As are you, as you have always been. as you will always be. It pointed to the ledger open on the desk. My handwriting filled the pages, the same handwriting I'd seen in the book downstairs. That's not possible, I whispered. I've never been here before. Time is circular in room 503, the observer explained. You have been here countless times. You will be here countless more. It indicated the shelves of ledgers. Each visit, you record the arrivals and departures below. Each cycle you forget. Then you return to continue your work. I don't understand, I said, backing toward the door. The observer smiled with too many teeth. Let me show you. It gestured to a mirror on the far wall. A mirror that hadn't been there moments before. In the reflection, I saw myself sitting at the desk, writing in the ledger. Then the image changed. Myself walking the hostel halls at night, peering into rooms, recording names and faces. Again and again, versions of me performing the same tasks in different eras, different clothes, but always with the same methodical precision. The Kirkbride needs its observer, the thing explained. To witness, to record, to remember what others forget. Why me? You chose this role. In 1983, you checked into room 503 and made a bargain: endless travel in exchange for service. It pointed to my backpack. The need to wander, the inability to settle. These are symptoms of your agreement. Horror dawned as memories surfaced, not from this life, but from previous cycles. The endless hostels, the compulsive journeying from place to place, never staying more than a few days anyway. I'd attributed it to wanderlust, but it was something else. A compulsion driving me back to the Kirkbride. What happens if I refuse? I asked. The observer's form rippled. You never do. It reached into a drawer and removed a key, ancient brass, heavy with age. Your room key, room 503, exists between moments, between the breaths of those below. Here, you observe without being observed. Here, you record without being recorded. Images flooded my mind, travelers sleeping while I stood over them, noting their names, their breathing patterns, the whispered secrets of their dreams. A voyeur of the unconscious, harvesting the intimate details of strangers. What does the Kirkbride do with these observations? I asked, already dreading the answer. It feeds, the observer said simply. Not on flesh or blood, but on stories, on experiences, on the essence of those who pass through. It gestured around us. Buildings have appetites too, especially old ones. Especially those built on certain intersections of, let's call them ley lines. I backed away. I won't do it. I'm leaving. You always say that, the observer sighed. Yet the key always finds its way into your pocket. The compulsion always draws you back. The cycle always continues. I turn to flee, only to find the doorway gone, replaced by more endless shelves of ledgers. Time works differently here, the observer reminded me. When you leave, and you will leave, it will be 1983 again. Your first arrival. You'll make the same choice. You'll begin the cycle anew. Why show me this if I'll only forget? Its ever-changing features, settled briefly into a perfect replica of my own face. Because part of you remembers. Part of you has always known. Why else would you feel drawn to hostels, to transient spaces, to recording the lives of those you meet in your endless journals? It gestured to my backpack, and I knew without looking that my travel journal inside was identical to the ledgers surrounding us. The Kirkbride is patient, the observer continued. It has existed for centuries under different names, in different forms. It will exist for centuries more, and you, observer, will continue your work. It held out the key. As if in a trance, I reached for it. The moment my fingers touched brass, room 503 dissolved around me. I found myself standing in the hostel lobby, morning light streaming through the windows. The clerk from yesterday was gone, replaced by an older woman I hadn't seen before. "Can I help you?" she asked pleasantly. I felt disoriented, checking my watch. 9:17 a.m. I'd lost hours. I had a room, I stammered. Through, she checked her computer. No record of that. Would you like to book a room? We have availability. Before I could answer, my hand brushed something in my pocket. The brass key. Attached was a tag labeled simply, "Sir?" the woman prompted. "Would you like a room?" My mouth formed words without conscious thought. "I believe I already have one." I showed her the key. Her expression changed instantly. Recognition, then fear, then carefully composed neutrality. "Of course, sir. Welcome back. Your observation post is ready." As she spoke, I noticed the ledger on the counter. My ledger opened to a fresh page awaiting new entries. Beside it lay a pen I recognized as my own. And I remembered everything. Not just last night, but all the nights, all the cycles, all the observations dating back to 1983, when I first discovered room Vol.3, when I first made my bargain with the Kirkbride. "Will you be making your rounds tonight?" the woman asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I should have thrown away the key, should have walked out the door and never returned, should have broken the cycle that had claimed decades of my existence. Instead, I picked up the pen. Yes, and somewhere in the building, beyond normal perception, I felt the Kirkbride's satisfaction as it prepared for another feast of stories, another cycle of observations, another eternity of hunger, briefly sated. I've been sitting in this waiting room for 3 hours and 17 minutes. Not that I'm counting or anything, but the clock on the wall seems to be the only thing moving in this sterile purgatory. Purgatory. Maybe that's too dramatic, but sitting in a hospital waiting room at 2:30 a.m. tends to bring out existential thoughts. The fluorescent lights flicker occasionally, casting everything in a sickly, greenish pallor that makes even the most robust-looking person appear halfway to death's door. There are 5 of us waiting. An elderly woman with gnarled hands clutching a plastic bag containing what looks like knitting supplies. A middle-aged man in a rumpled business suit who hasn't looked up from his phone in an hour. A young couple supporting each other, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, both with red-rimmed eyes. And me, Alex Mercer, 29 years old, here because my mother collapsed at dinner, and the paramedics whisked her away before I could even process what was happening. Family of Eleanor Pearson? I stand up so quickly I feel lightheaded. That's me. I'm her son. The nurse, her name tag reads Patricia, gives me a tight smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "The doctor would like to speak with you. Follow me, please." As I trail behind her through the double doors that separate the waiting area from the actual hospital, I can't help but notice how empty the corridors are. No staff bustling about, no patients being wheeled between rooms, just empty hallways with squeaky linoleum floors and that persistent, almost subliminal hum of equipment. "Is my mother okay?" I ask, my voice echoing slightly in the empty hall. Patricia doesn't turn around. The doctor will explain everything. We make several turns, going deeper into the hospital than I expected. Left, right again. Down a long corridor. Through another set of double doors. I'm starting to lose my bearings when Patricia stops abruptly at a door labeled Consultation Room. "Wait here," she says, gesturing to a chair outside the door. "Dr. Emerson will be with you shortly." Before I can ask another question, she's walking away, her white shoes silent now on the linoleum. I check my watch, 2:47 a.m., and sit down to wait again. The hallway is eerily quiet. No announcements over the PA system. No distant beeping of medical equipment. No murmur of voices. Just silence, broken only by the soft buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. 10 minutes pass, then I'm about to get up and look for someone, anyone, when the door to Consultation Room 7 opens, and a tall, thin man in a white coat emerges. "Mr. Mercer, I'm Dr. Emerson." His handshake is firm but brief, his eyes tired behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Please come in." The consultation room is small and windowless, containing only a desk, 3 chairs and a computer monitor turned away from where I sit. Dr. Emerson settles behind the desk, folds his hands, and looks at me with an expression I can't quite read. "How is she?" I ask, my mouth suddenly dry. Dr. Emerson sighs. Your mother experienced what appears to be a stroke. We've stabilized her condition, but he pauses, seeming to choose his words carefully. There are some concerning results from her initial tests. What kind of concerning result? We'd like to keep her for observation and run some additional tests. With your permission, of course. Something in his tone makes me uneasy. Of course, whatever she needs. Can I see her now? Dr. Emerson glances at his watch. It's quite late, Mr. Mercer. Your mother is sedated and won't be conscious until morning. I'd suggest you go home, get some rest, and return tomorrow. Visiting hours begin at 10 a.m. I hesitate. The thought of leaving her alone in this strangely quiet hospital bothers me, but I'm exhausted, running on adrenaline and 3 cups of vending machine coffee. Will you call me if anything changes? Anything at all? Absolutely. Dr. Emerson stands, signaling the end of our conversation. The nurse will show you out. As if on cue, Patricia appears at the door, that same tight smile fixed on her face. This way, Mr. Mercer. I follow her back through the labyrinthine corridors, trying to memorize the route in reverse for tomorrow's visit. Left, right, long corridor, double doors, but something seems off. I could swear we're taking a different path than before. Excuse me, I say, as we pass a nurse's station, empty, like everything else in this place. Shouldn't we have turned right back there to get to the waiting room? Patricia doesn't break stride. There are multiple routes. This one's faster. We emerge not into the waiting room where I spent over 3 hours, but directly into the main lobby near the entrance. The elderly woman, the businessman, and the young couple are nowhere to be seen. The parking lot is through those doors, Patricia says, already turning away. Remember, visiting hours start at 10 a.m. Outside, the night air is cool on my face. My car sits alone in the visitor parking lot, bathed in the yellow glow of a single lamppost. As I drive home, I can't shake a feeling of unease, like I've missed something important. My apartment feels emptier than usual when I unlock the door at 3:30 a.m. I kick off my shoes, collapse onto the couch, and pull out my phone to set an alarm for the morning. That's when I notice I have no service, no bars, no 4G or 5G icon. Nothing. Strange, the hospital isn't in a dead zone. Too tired to worry about it, I set my alarm using the phone's clock and drift into an uneasy sleep filled with dreams of endless corridors and doors that lead nowhere. The alarm wakes me at 9 a.m. I shower, change, and gulp down a bowl of cereal before heading back to the hospital. In daylight, the building looks different, less imposing somehow, its brick facade warmed by the morning sun. There are more cars in the parking lot now, more signs of life. Inside, the lobby bustles with activity that was absent the night before. Visitors coming and going, staff moving purposefully between departments, the low hum of conversation. I approach the information desk, staffed by a young man with a friendly smile. "Good morning," he says. "How can I help you?" "I'm here to see Eleanor Pearson. She was admitted last night." The young man, his name tag reads Marcus, taps at his computer keyboard, frowns, taps again. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't see a patient by that name in our system. That's impossible. She was admitted last night around 11:30. Dr. Emerson spoke to me himself." Marcus shakes his head. "There's no Dr. Emerson at this hospital, sir." My heart begins to race. "Look, there must be some mistake. My mother had a stroke. She was brought here by ambulance. I spoke with Dr. Emerson in consultation room 7. Marcus's expression shifts from friendly to concerned. "Sir, we don't have a consultation room 7. Our consultation rooms are on the first floor." I feel like I'm losing my mind. The nurse, Patricia, she took me through these double doors. I point to where I remember entering the hospital proper the night before. We went down several hallways. "Sir," Marcus interrupts gently, "those doors lead to our administrative offices. They would have been locked at that hour." Then how did I, I stop myself, aware that I must sound deranged. I take a deep breath. Look, can you just check again? Eleanor Pearson admitted last night for a possible stroke. Marcus sighs but returns to his computer. After a moment, he looks up. No, Eleanor Pearson has been admitted to this hospital in the past week. What about transfers? Could she have been transferred to another facility? Not without processing through our system first. Marcus hesitates, then adds, "Are you sure you have the right hospital?" Last night is a blur of anxiety and exhaustion. But no, I'm certain this is where the ambulance brought her. I remember the waiting room, the clock on the wall, the other people waiting. Is everything okay here? A security guard has approached, eyeing me with professional suspicion. Marcus gives him a subtle headshake, and the guard backs off slightly but remains nearby. "Sir," Marcus says, voice lowered, "perhaps you should call your mother's cell phone. There might be a simple explanation." Of course. Why didn't I think of that? I pull out my phone, still no service, strangely, and shake my head. "Can I use your phone?" Marcus pushes the desk phone toward me. I dial my mother's number from memory, listening to it ring once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" Her voice. My knees nearly buckle with relief. "Mom? It's Alex. Where are you?" "At home, of course. Where else would I be at this hour?" I look at my watch. 9:27 a.m. Not exactly the crack of dawn. "Mom, don't you remember what happened last night? You collapsed at dinner. An ambulance brought you to the hospital." A pause. "Alex, what are you talking about? We didn't have dinner last night." My mouth goes dry. "Yes, we did. At Rossini's, your favorite pasta place. You ordered the gnocchi with pesto, like you always do." Another longer pause. "Honey, are you feeling all right? We haven't been to Rossini's in months, and I've been home all week with that cold. Remember, you dropped off soup on Tuesday." Tuesday. Today is Saturday. I did bring her soup on Tuesday, because she'd called complaining of a cold. But last night, I have to go. I mumble into the phone and hang up without waiting for her response. Marcus is watching me with open concern now. "Sir, I'm fine," I say automatically. Just confused, I guess. I leave the hospital in a daze, sunlight harsh on my eyes after the fluorescent lighting inside. In my car, I sit with my hands on the steering wheel, trying to make sense of what's happening. Did I dream the whole thing? A stress-induced hallucination? No. It felt too real. The waiting room, Dr. Emerson, Patricia's squeaky shoes on the linoleum. I drive to my mother's house, needing to see her in person to confirm she's truly okay. Her car is in the driveway, her morning newspaper on the front step. Everything normal. Everything as it should be. She answers the door in her bathrobe, hair uncombed, looking perfectly fine except for a slightly red nose, evidence of the cold she mentioned. "Alex, what are you doing here so early?" I stare at her, searching for any sign of the medical emergency I witnessed last night. "Nothing. Can I come in?" She steps aside and I enter the familiar comfort of her home. Everything is in its place. The collection of ceramic cats on the mantel, the slightly crooked family photos on the wall, the stack of mystery novels by her reading chair. "Are you hungry?" she asks, heading toward the kitchen. I was just about to make some toast. I follow her, watching as she moves around the kitchen with her usual energy. No sign of weakness or disorientation that might indicate a stroke. "Mom," I say carefully, "what did you do last night?" She puts bread in the toaster, then turns to face me. I watched that new crime show, the one set in Alaska, then read for a bit and went to bed early. This cold has been draining my energy." She peers at me more closely. "You look terrible, honey. Didn't you sleep?" "Not well, I admit. I had a strange night." "Nightmare? Was it just a nightmare? So vivid I couldn't distinguish it from reality?" "Maybe," I say, unwilling to worry her with my apparent delusion. "Listen, I can't stay long. I just wanted to check on you." "That's sweet." She smiles, patting my cheek like she did when I was a child. "But I'm fine. You're the one I'm worried about." I make an excuse about errands and leave shortly after, her concerned gaze following me out the door. In my car again, I find myself at a loss. If last night wasn't real, then what was it? And why do I remember it with such clarity? On impulse, I drive back to the hospital and park in the same spot I used last night. From here, I can see the emergency entrance where the ambulance would have arrived. Everything looks the same as it did in my dream memory. My phone chimes. Service restored, apparently. And I check my call history. No outgoing calls to 911 last night. No calls at all after 6 p.m. I'm about to put the phone away when it rings in my hand. The screen showing an unfamiliar number with the local area code.
Hello? Mr. Mercer? This is Dr. Emerson. My blood turns to ice. Dr. Emerson? From the hospital? Yes, the familiar voice replies. I'm calling about your mother. My mother is fine, I say, voice shaking. I just came from her house. A pause. Mr. Mercer, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Your mother is still here, under observation. In fact, I'm looking at her chart right now. That's impossible. My voice rises. I was just with her. She's at home with a cold. Alex, Emerson's voice softens. I think you should come back to the hospital. Not as a visitor this time, but as a patient. I'm concerned about you. Concerned about me. Why? Because, Alex, what you're experiencing isn't real. You're currently in consultation room 7. And have been since your admission 3 days ago. The world tilts sideways. I look around wildly at my car, the parking lot, the hospital in the distance. Everything seems solid, real. That's not true, I whisper. You suffered a psychotic break, Alex. You've been creating elaborate scenarios, like this phone call to avoid facing reality. What reality? My mouth is so dry I can barely form the words. Your mother passed away, Alex. 3 days ago. You found her in her home, called 911, but it was too late. The strain was too much for you, and your mind created this alternate reality where she's still alive. No, I shake my head violently, though there's no one to see. No, I just saw her. She was making toast. She has a cold. I brought her soup on Tuesday. Tuesday was almost 2 weeks ago, Alex. Dr. Emerson's voice is gentle but firm. You've lost time. It's Saturday, but not the Saturday you think it is. My hand trembles so badly I almost drop the phone. If what you're saying is true, then how are we having this conversation? How am I in my car? You're not, Alec. You're sitting across from me right now, eyes unfocused, having a conversation with a phone that isn't there. I don't believe you. Look at your phone, Alex. Really look at it. I glance down at the device in my hand and find myself holding nothing at all. The car dissolves around me. The parking lot, the hospital in the distance, all gone in an instant. Instead, I'm sitting in a small windowless room with institutional green walls. Consultation room 7. Across from me sits Dr. Emerson, exactly as I remember him. Tall, thin, tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Welcome back, he says quietly. This isn't real, I insist, panic rising in my throat. This is the delusion, not the other way around. Dr. Emerson shakes his head sadly. Your mother had a history of stroke in her family. You knew the signs: facial drooping, confusion, slurred speech. When you found her, you called for help. But it was too late. The guilt was overwhelming. No, I whisper, but a terrible certainty is growing inside me. Memories begin to surface. Finding my mother on her kitchen floor. Her face askew, my frantic call to 911. The paramedics' grim expressions. She can't be gone. Tears well in my eyes. I just saw her. Your mind created what you needed to see, Dr. Emerson explains. A common coping mechanism, albeit an extreme version in your case. A knock at the door, and Patricia enters. The same nurse from last night, with the same tight smile that doesn't reach her eyes. It's time for his medication. She says to Dr. Emerson, who nods. This will help you stay with us, Alex. He tells me, as Patricia prepares a syringe, help you accept what's happened and begin to heal. I want to resist, to flee, but the fight drains out of me as the truth settles in my bones. My mother is gone, and part of me has been trying to follow her. Patricia approaches with the syringe, and I passively offer my arm. The needle stings briefly, then warmth flows through my veins, bringing a strange clarity. "Rest now," Dr. Emerson says, standing to leave. "We'll talk more later." As the medication takes effect, the walls of consultation room 7 begin to wobble and distort. Emerson and Patricia waver like heat mirages before dissolving completely. The room expands, contracts, then shatters like glass. I find myself back in the waiting room where it all began. The same fluorescent lights, the same uncomfortable chair, the elderly woman with her knitting, the businessman with his phone, the young couple leaning on each other, and the clock on the wall. Hands frozen at 2:30 a.m. As I watch, the elderly woman looks up from her knitting and smiles at me. The first genuine smile I've seen since this ordeal began. "It gets easier," she says softly. "The waiting. Waiting for what?" I ask, though somehow I already know the answer. "For acceptance," the businessman says without looking up from his phone. "That's always the hardest part." The young woman lifts her head from her partner's shoulder. "We've all been where you are," she tells me, "caught between what we want to be true and what is." "How long have you been here?" I ask them. The elderly woman chuckles. "Time doesn't work the same way here, dear." "Here? Where exactly is here?" The double doors at the end of the waiting room swing open, and Patricia emerges. But she's different now. Her smile reaches her eyes, and she moves with a grace that seems almost otherworldly. "The doctor will see you now," she announces, looking directly at me. I stand on shaky legs. "Doc Emerson." "No," the elderly woman answers for Patricia. "Someone else, someone who's been waiting for you." As I approach the doors, I glance back at my companions in the waiting room. They offer encouraging nods and smiles. "Will I see you again?" I ask. "Perhaps," the businessman says, finally setting down his phone. "Or perhaps you'll move on. It depends on what you need." Patricia holds the door open for me, and beyond I can see not a hospital corridor, but a warm, bright light. And standing in that light, hand outstretched, is my mother, whole and healthy, and smiling the way she did before illness began to claim her years ago. "Mom?" My voice breaks on the word. "It's time to stop waiting, Alex," she says. "Time to come home." I take one step forward, then another. The waiting room falls away behind me as I reach for her hand. And finally, I understand. This has never been about hospitals or doctors or mysterious phone calls. It's been about the space between loss and acceptance, between grief and healing. The waiting room wasn't a place, but a state of mind. My mind caught in denial's grip. As my fingers touch my mother's, the last pieces fall into place. The car accident I didn't see coming. The semi-truck that crossed the center line. The frantic efforts of paramedics that ultimately failed. I never made it to the hospital to see my mother after her stroke. I never made it home from her house that night. I never had the chance to say goodbye. Until now. "I've missed you," she says, drawing me into the light. "I've missed you too," I reply, finally letting go of the waiting room and everything it represents. And together, we step through the doorway, leaving the purgatory of denial behind forever. The